What's up, everybody? I'm Aaron Rian with the Brokerage House, and I help thousands of agents make millions of dollars in commissions in the real estate industry. And today, I want to talk to you about if today's market is as bad as it was in 2008. And I'm going to start off by saying absolutely not. This market is not nearly as bad as what we saw in the last recession. Now, keep in mind, we are just starting the early stages of heading into a slowdown, but I don't think we're going to be nearly as bad as we were in 2008. So I'm going to rewind about 14 years and talk to you about what we saw in 2008. So you got to remember, in 08, we were coming off one of the hottest real estate markets that the country had ever seen. 05, 06, and 2007 were some of the best times that we had in real estate, where appreciation was up, people would live in houses for 2 years and sell them and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Probably sounds pretty familiar, kind of like the market we just came out of. But I'll tell you this, it felt like it was never going to stop. Then one day in 2008, if I recall correctly, it was somewhere around March and April of 2008, it was like the light switch flipped and everything came to a grinding halt. Buyers weren't buying, sellers weren't getting their price. There were a lot more price reductions, but the major difference that we experienced in 2008 where there were so many more defaults. There were so many more people who were upside down in their homes. Because you got to remember, back in 2008, lending was completely different. You really didn't have to qualify for a mortgage. They had these things called liar loans, where you could do stated income, where you just told the mortgage lender what you made. There was very little verification of that, and then they gave you a mortgage for several hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2021, 2022, we've seen obviously a huge climb in real estate, but the mortgage market was a lot more challenging to get people qualified for if you compare that to what it was like in 2008. I remember in 2008, I had sent my landscaper to a mortgage lender. He had gotten approved. He had a small business, but he got approved for $800,000. I could not believe it, and he couldn't either. That just shows how easy it was back in 2008 for somebody who may have had a limited income and who didn't have a lot of savings or a lot of assets, wasn't driving around in new cars, didn't have a lot of flash and cash, but they were still able to qualify for an $800,000 mortgage. This market was a lot different because the mortgage market was more controlled. You had to qualify, you had to prove income, you had to have reasonably good credit. So, and you still had to have down payments. Remember, back in 2008, you could get a mortgage without a down payment. In fact, you could get a mortgage with no money out of your pocket. Because if you could get the seller to pay your closing costs and you could do 100% financing, or you could do 103% financing where you just finance your closing costs, you'd have no skin in the game. So what we experienced in 2008 and 2009 was when people were going through financial hardship because they didn't have a lot of skin in the game on their home, or the value dropped on their home so significantly, they were just bailing on them. And so we see a lot more bank-owned properties come to market and a heck of a lot of short sales. I don't think this market is going to be quite the same. In 08, it was quite a bit different because, you had people who couldn't afford their mortgage anymore because they weren't making the same kind of money that they were making, a year prior. So they didn't have a lot of skin in the game. So it was a lot easier to walk away from those homes than if they would have had 20% into the house or 10% even into the house. Also, you got to remember there were a lot of second homes where people were buying homes they weren't qualified to own. And think about it, if you can't make your normal living expenses, guess what the first thing you're going to give up is? It's typically going to be that second vacation home or second home. So we had just a flood of properties that were coming to market in either short sale situations or that were bank owned. In this market that we're seeing in 2022, we're definitely seeing a slowdown. What we're experiencing now in the market, we're not seeing multiple offers. We're not putting a home on the market on a Friday and collecting 13 offers on a Monday and telling our sellers to take their pick. You're seeing a lot more price reductions. If you go to Zillow or Realtor.com right now and you punch in a city and a state, you're probably going to see a lot of price adjustments with down arrows, meaning that they just reduced the price. We're seeing a heck of a lot more of that than we saw 6 months ago. In fact, I introduced a new term to our real estate team here, especially for those that had just started within the last couple of years, and that was price reduction. You probably haven't heard much of that over the last couple of years. You need to understand it and you need to get really good at it because it's going to be a part of our business moving forward. You're going to see a lot more price reductions. Now, remember when the market was booming over the last couple of years, in most markets we're seeing up to about 14, maybe even 15% appreciation in real estate value. Now I predict we're going to get down somewhere between 3 to 4%, which is actually a normal stable market. And we can sustain that over a long period of time. What we can't sustain is 14 to 15% appreciation. It's not sustainable. Real estate was never meant to appreciate at that rate. So we're not going to see the same downturn in the economy. We're not going to see the same crash in the real estate market. We're definitely going to see a correction. We're going to see rates go up, which we're already seeing. Rates are almost at about 6% right now. And so what that's causing is the market's starting to stall out a little bit because the buyers who are qualified for, say, a $400,000 mortgage, they're very, a lot of them are very payment conscious. So when they looked at their payment and they were qualified for $400,000 at 3%, now that rates went up almost overnight to 5%, they were probably bumped down to $300,000, maybe $320,000. That's a completely different house. So you saw a lot of those $400,000 buyers go down significantly in price point or get completely out of the market because those $300,000 houses didn't meet their expectations. So, we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of people get out of the market because they felt like rates might come down again at a different time, which, trust me, rates are not going to come down. Remember, the feds have to do something to correct inflation. And this is the way that they're doing that is by raising rates at the rate that they're raising them. Now, keep in mind, if they raise them too fast, they're going to trigger a recession, which will also not be good for our housing market. So you'll want to keep an eye on what is going on with mortgage interest rates because that's going to have a huge determining factor on what our real estate market does and how it's going to move forward. Are we going to have the same crash that we had in 2008? No, we're probably not going to have the same crash that we had in 2008. Is the housing market going to see short sales and foreclosures? Not at the rate that we saw them in 2008, but we are going to start seeing more bank owns and even some short sales hit the market. So you've got to be prepared for that. If you're an agent out there listening to this and you're thinking, well, I have listings and they're not getting offers, they're not selling, remember, price might not always be the problem, but it's always the solution. When you have one that's not selling, get a price reduction. It'll help your property move in the marketplace. Hopefully you found this information to be helpful. If you liked our video, you liked our content, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. If you have questions, leave them down below in the comment section. We read all of those and we'll definitely respond to you. Thank you for watching and have a great day.